Hello, fellow teachers. I hope that as you watch this video, you're either enjoying a great, successful year of teaching or a restful break. Today, I want to talk with you about something that affects almost everything we do in the classroom, student motivation. I want to share with you some experiences that I've had with some theories that could make your instruction more effective. Student motivation is such a huge determinant when it comes to effective instruction. We all want our students to do more than complete an assignment because we told them to. We want them to become learners who can persevere when work becomes difficult, use strategies instead of immediately giving up, ask for help, recover from mistakes, and take increasing responsibility for their learning. Motivation is sometimes treated as something separate from instruction. We may think we need to stop teaching to give a motivational speech, provide a reward, or create an elaborate activity. But what I have learned through my own experiences is that motivation does not need to interrupt instruction. When you use motivational strategies intentionally, they can actually make instruction easier by increasing participation, stamina, and willingness to learn. Accompany me as I share with you two theories that especially helped me understand what I was observing. According to expectancy value theory, students often consider two questions. Can I do this? And is this worth doing? Students are more likely to participate when they believe success is possible and the task has value. They also consider the cost, including effort, fatigue, embarrassment, frustration, or fear of failure. The second theory, achievement goal theory, asks us to consider how students define success. Are they focused on learning and improving, or are they focused on proving their ability and avoiding looking incapable? Mastery-oriented environments tend to emphasize progress, understanding, strategy use, and growth rather than only grades, speed, and comparison. I want to share 4 strategies that you can incorporate into your daily instruction smoothly without it being an extra burden. 1. Identify the real motivational problem. 2. Make progress visible. 3. Increase value while reducing unnecessary cost. 4. Create a mastery-oriented environment with accessible goals. We will now dive deeper into each one of these strategies, and by the end of this video, let's make sure that you're ready to implement this in your classroom. First strategy: identify the real motivational problem. The first thing you need to do is diagnose before you intervene. You may have 2 students sitting in front of unfinished assignments. Both may appear unmotivated, but the reasons could be completely different. One student may not understand the directions. Another may understand the task, but believe they are incapable of completing it. A multilingual learner may understand the concept, but not yet have the English needed to express the answer, and so on, with every student and their unique situation. They may display similar behaviors, but they do not need the same intervention. During my first motivation theory application experience, I was teaching 4th grade summer school. The students were there because they had failed reading, math, or both. However, they had not failed for the same reasons. Some had academic gaps. Some were multilingual learners. Some had experienced behavior and work completion difficulties. Others were involved in the MTSS process. Many entered summer school already feeling frustrated and defeated. Some had tried during the school year and still had not passed. Others had accepted identities such as the bad student or the student who always fails. I knew I could not simply reteach the content and expect a completely different result. I needed to address what they believed about themselves as learners first. I began treating summer school almost like a good student boot camp. We worked on academic skills, but we also practiced how successful students participate, use strategies, ask questions, and continue through frustration. interrupt this program for a knowledge check. Knowledge check! Knowledge check 1. Imagine that a student puts their head down during a writing assignment and says, I'm not doing this. What will you do first? Would you A. Offer a prize for finishing? B. Give a consequence? C. Tell the student they need a better attitude? D. Ask questions to determine whether the problem is confidence, clarity, value, or task difficulty? And the right answer is D. Ask questions to determine whether the problem is confidence, clarity, value, or task difficulty. This is the most useful first response. You need to understand the barrier before selecting the strategy. Well done! Yes, well done. I know you got it right. Second strategy, make progress visible. The next step is to give students evidence that improvement is possible. The expectancy part of expectancy value theory is connected to whether students believe they can succeed. Students who have repeatedly struggled may say, I am bad at math. I cannot read. I am not a good writer. I already know I am going to fail. Saying, you can do it, may be encouraging, but students also need evidence. During summer school, I did not want my students' confidence to depend only on whether every answer was immediately correct. Many still had academic gaps. Instead, I wanted them to become confident in their ability to learn. I wanted them to believe, I can use a strategy. I can ask for help. I can correct a mistake. I can improve with practice. I can continue when something feels difficult. Whenever students completed something they had not been able to do before, I asked, were you able to do this before? Are you able to do it now? What strategy helped you? What did you do when you became confused? I also connected small behaviors to their identities as successful students so that identity could be reinforced. For example, you found the correct page quickly and made sure you were ready. That is what a responsible student does. You did not understand at first, but you asked a question instead of shutting down. You tried another strategy when the first one did not work. This is not empty praise. Specific feedback shows students what contributed to their improvement. Instead of only saying good job, say, you used the feedback to revise your answer. You stayed with the task longer today. You corrected your mistake. You used a strategy independently. You asked for help when you needed it. These can be used in every content area. The message should be, your current performance is not the final definition of your ability. You can improve, and here is the evidence. And you can start from the smallest of steps. Start where the student is, and the student will want to build from there, as even the smallest accomplishment is celebrated. We interrupt this program for a second knowledge check. Imagine that a student understands a math concept during discussion but leaves most of the written assignments blank. What will you do? Would you A. Assume the student was not paying attention? B. Give more of the same problems for practice? C. Ask the student to explain the concept orally and determine whether writing stamina or task length is the barrier? D. Reduce the academic goal completely. The strongest first response is C. The student may understand the mathematics, but need a different entry point into the written task. Hey, well done again. Yes, I know you got it right. Third strategy, increase value and reduce cost. Your next step will be to help students understand why the work matters and remove unnecessary barriers without removing the challenge. According to expectancy value theory, students are more motivated when they see value in a task. Value may come from usefulness, enjoyment, interest, personal meaning, identity, or connection to a future goal. During summer school, I connected activities to my students' goals. I asked them how they wanted to feel when they entered 5th grade. We discussed what they wanted to become in the future and how academic success could affect their opportunities. At first, I explained the purpose of activities we conducted in the classroom, and later I asked students to explain the purpose themselves. I also increased interest through collaboration, play, humor, and connection to students' interests. Even using funny voices during our attention signal helped create a more positive classroom atmosphere. However, even if students understand that a task is valuable, they could still avoid it because the cost feels too high. Cost may include fatigue, frustration, anxiety, embarrassment, fear of failure, excessive cognitive demand. Fatigue was one of the biggest challenges I noticed. When students became overwhelmed, their stamina decreased and disengagement often increased. In these cases, break glass by responding with breaking assignments into smaller sections, creating visible checkpoints, providing sentence frames or graphic organizers, allowing oral rehearsal before writing, using drawings as an entry point, and providing brief movement or brain breaks. Reducing costs does not mean lowering expectations. If the goal is for a student to create a strong argument, allowing oral rehearsal does not remove the intellectual challenge. It just makes the assignment more accessible to the student. So, dear fellow teacher, the question is not how can I make every activity entertaining? The question is how can I help students see why the work deserves their effort and what unnecessary barrier can I remove? Fourth strategy, create a mastery-oriented environment. Your final steps will be to define success as growth, learning, and strategy use, and breaking large goals into achievable steps. My second motivation experience involved helping my mother begin working toward her physical health goals. She had attempted to improve her health several times and had become frustrated. Exercise had become connected to pressure, failure, and the feeling that change might not be possible. When I approached her with a notebook and suggested creative goals, she immediately resisted. How many times have we not seen this same response with our students? I realized that I could not begin by pushing the goal harder. I first needed to reduce the threat. According to Maslow, first, her emotional safety had to be secured. So, I told her that this was not a test, punishment, or comparison. It was not about reaching a perfect number or changing her appearance immediately. It was about becoming stronger, improving mobility, and gaining energy little by little. That changed the goal from a performance focus to a mastery focus. A performance goal asks, did I prove that I am capable? Did I look better than someone else? Did I avoid failure? While a mastery goal asks, am I learning? Am I improving? Am I becoming more capable? Once the approach has turned into a mastery goal one, it is time to create small proximal goals. For example, with my mom, we created small proximal goals like a 1 minute of wall push-ups, morning stretches, and a 10-minute walk. She also chose some exercises herself, which gave her more ownership. We created a baseline so she could compare her progress with herself rather than with other people. Goal setting research explains that goals are more motivating when they are specific, challenging but achievable, and close enough for progress to be visible. Proximal goals can help people move toward larger long-term goals. This applies directly to students. Telling a striving reader you need to reach grade level may be accurate, but the goal may feel too distant. A better first goal could be read for 5 focus minutes. Use one decoding strategy. Ask a question when confused. For behavior, the goal might begin with complete one transition successfully, stay engaged during one section of the lesson, use one regulation strategy. As students develop competence, you can increase the expectations. One of my biggest takeaways was the final goal must be meaningful enough for the person to want it, but the first step must be accessible enough for the person to begin. Students also need emotional safety. A student who feels embarrassed, labeled, or constantly compared may not respond positively to a goal chart. A mastery-oriented classroom communicates that you are here to learn, you are not expected to know everything immediately, mistakes give us information, strategies matter, revision matters, and your progress and effort above everything else matters. So, dear fellow teacher, what am I carrying into my practice? And I hope that you will too. These two experiences happened in different settings, but they taught me similar lessons. In both situations, resistance did not mean that the person did not care. Resistance was connected to anticipated failure, frustration, pressure, emotional cost, even self-protection. Motivation increased when the person experienced safety, purpose, accessible challenges, visible progress, specific feedback. I cannot control every factor affecting my students' motivation. We cannot control their past experiences, home circumstances, academic gaps, or language development. However, we can influence the conditions in our classrooms. We can explain the purpose of the work, make progress visible, break difficult tasks into manageable sections, normalize mistakes, offer meaningful choices, highlight strategies instead of only results, teach students how to reflect on their learning. These practices do not require us to stop teaching the curriculum. They just become a part of how we teach it. So in conclusion, motivation is not an extra decoration added after instruction has been planned. It is part of the foundation that allows instruction to work. When a student is struggling, remember these 4 strategies. Identify the real motivational problem, make progress visible, increase value, and reduce unnecessary cost. Create mastery goals with manageable first steps. You do not have to change everything at once. Choose one student, one class, or one learning task where motivation has become a struggle. And instead of immediately asking, how can I make the student do the work? Ask, what does the student believe about their ability? Does the student understand the work? Why the work matters? What is making participation feel too costly? How is the student defining success? What smaller step could help the student begin? When I began applying these ideas, I honestly felt as though I had discovered a superpower. Not because I could magically make every student motivated, but because I had a better framework for understanding what I was seeing. I hope that you have now also realized the superpower that you have. When you combine your knowledge of motivation with your knowledge of your students, you can help them become more willing to try, more capable of persevering, and more prepared to take ownership of their learning. Our goal as teachers is not only to motivate students to complete today's assignment. Our goal is to help them develop the beliefs, habits, and strategies they need to remain successful learners long after they leave our classrooms. Thank you, teacher, for making a difference in the world and taking the time to gain the tools that will help you better do so. Onward.